injured. That's the latest, but of course our senior reporter Mzwandile Mbeje has been reporting on what's been happening in Zimbabwe. He has returned to South Africa and joins us now on the line. Mzwandile, part of the reason, of course, you would have returned and are back in South Africa was that until several hours ago, everything looked peaceful. Observers were saying that the poll had been credible. Obviously, we always knew that one side was going to be unhappy with the result, but nothing quite like what we have seen emerge these last few hours. When you left, what was the situation like?
Thank you, Bongani. It's a complete shock to see what's happening, given the evidence and the situation we witnessed on the ground in Zimbabwe, both in Bulawayo and Harare. If people disagreed on which party to vote for, they were doing that in a very jovial manner. So we had all concluded that for the first time, Zimbabweans realized that peace is the only way to go. Of course, every side, Bongani was confident of victory. But the way they were interacting, I mean, even on the streets, you would see people wearing different shirts, with no provocation whatsoever. So nothing could really have prepared you for this kind of situation that we are seeing. So it's very sad. I mean, as you say, the reason, some of us had to come back because it appeared that the situation was back to normal, and then so the only issue, the results were going to be announced, and then everything was going to be all right. But look what's happening now.
I imagine also, though, we had already, of course, heard murmurs of objections, particularly around the polling stations not putting up the lists in terms of how those figures were being reported. So there was already some disquiet. But as you say, in fact, people were planning celebration parties, were they not, Mzwandile?
They were indeed, but I think, Bongane, I would actually put the blame squarely on the shoulders of the leaders. Because as I'm saying, when we're interacting with ordinary people, people were really happy with everything that was going on. But then when leaders started to say, we are the only ones who will win, if we are not winning, it's because somebody would have done something wrong. And then you started seeing that maybe not all is right. I mean, during the voting day, for example, we spoke to the spokesperson of the MDC Alliance, Mzwandile Mbeje. We said, so what are the prospects? And then he said, you know what, everything is going smoothly. So if nothing is done, so we're winning this election. So, and then you then get a sense that as these constituency results are coming out, and then given the public statement some of them had made, and then they start to say, well, maybe we may mislead the people. And people are like, oh, well, our leaders have told us that we are winning. What is this? So really, I think the biggest blame should really be on the shoulders of the politicians.
Mzwandile, of course, this is not your first rodeo. You've covered many an election in your time. Give us a sense then of what it was like to be on the ground as a journalist. This election, many are saying, of course, was an historic one. Zimbabwe ready for change. What were the last few days like for you as a journalist on the ground?
You know, Bongani, Zimbabweans, by their very own nature, are very peaceful people. But because of the political situation and the dynamics, things tend to change. You know, when I interacted with those people, so I saw a people very matured. And then compared to sometimes what happens here in South Africa, you know, the build-up in South Africa normally will be characterized sometimes in certain pockets of the country by violent clashes. We did not witness that. I mean, the only thing we really remember about Zimbabwe was during 2008 when the situation was tense. So this time around, we really thought Zimbabwe was back to the old Zimbabwe. It just surprises that things had to be like this. But in terms of the experience of covering the elections, it was really, really smooth. I mean, people were cooperating. It didn't matter whether they were speaking to the official or an ordinary person. They were always willing to give you their opinion, so what they thought and what exactly they wanted. I mean, as you talk about change, everyone wanted change. Never mind that the change they wanted may not necessarily have been the same. So as for MDC, they wanted to change government altogether. But as for the ruling ZANU-PF, they wanted the change of direction because they felt they have a new leader now. They need to redevelop the country, because the country needs a lot of economic injection, Mohan.
Of course, one of the issues we've been repeating throughout the last few days is the sense that for the first time in 38 years, there was no Robert Mugabe on the ballot paper. That would, of course, also have meant that for many young people, that would have certainly galvanized their involvement in this election. How much do you think that the young people of Zimbabwe are going to be a factor in what happens in the next few days?
The young people of Zimbabwe came out as well in their numbers, and as you have correctly said, it was for the first time that they voted with Mugabe not on the ballot paper. But there is also another dynamic with the Zimbabwean elections. Most of the electorate are still rural people. So rural people are by and large would be ZANU-PF, and then the urban people would be more aligned to the opposition. So what you saw, the youth, if they belong to ZANU-PF, they would be more inclined towards ZANU-PF, but if they were in urban areas, they'd be more towards the NDC. So you still have that very interesting divide. As much as all are interested in seeing change, so that change is through which party they support.
All right, we'll have to leave it there with our senior reporter Mzwandile Mbeje on the line. Of course, he's just returned from Zimbabwe, really with no way to anticipate what's emerged these last few hours. The latest to come out of Zimbabwe at this stage is that police have confirmed 3 people have died, scores others are injured, and really we're now beginning to see a picture of a very polarized nation, MDC versus ZANU-PF supporters. We do hope, of course, that in the coming days maybe calm will return.